Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of May the 8th, 14th, 2023. We have quite an intense and very versatile week ahead of us where a lot of things are under construction. The energy is building. The energy is taking shape and form and connecting things, people, events, even internally, emotions, or this might be a moment when we truly get the big picture. It's not easy, it's not perhaps very simple, but we get it. We get to the stage where we are at least found in our own truth. And that is more important than perhaps all the other energies out there. Now, this is one of those weeks where post eclipses on the 19th and 20th of April, we had the lunar eclipse in the solar eclipse, the North Node solar eclipse in the sign of Aries and Heretic, and we are still under its influence. But also on the 5th of May, we had the lunar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio, and that energy is also active, powerful, at work, ongoing. And that is the revelation, the true side of things, because whatever is happening in our lives right now, or is imminently going to happen because we're already there, that will speak to us quite a great deal about our most, let's say, scorpionic aspects, that which sometimes is even hidden from the self, that which we do not necessarily want to look at, sometimes ever. But there are moments like these when it will pop to the surface one way or another, and it is not no easy to stop it, or perhaps impossible to stop it. Now, this week has a lot of sextiles and a lot of empowering energy out there. And this is the resources, this is the tools, this is our own ingenuity coming out for us to be able to solve the problems. May they be just Mercury retrograde, immediate problems, or something from the not so distant past that needs to be taken care of, especially through Mercury in Taurus calculations, really evaluating it quite with facts, with figures, with numbers, with Taurian elements. So this is quite a concrete and real energy. It has a lot to do with feeling, yes, but that feeling ultimately will be translated into something quite concrete as facts, numbers, dates, etc. And also, due to the eclipse energies, I find that this Mercury retrograde is also forcing many of us to take care of certain medical problems or things that have to do with the physical body. Now, that can also cause quite a lot of inconvenience, and more importantly, those problems, regardless how they manifest on the pain scale or the inconvenience scale, they do ground us. They do take us very quickly down from the clouds into real life, the material situation of everything. And that's not necessarily bad. That's quite good because no one says we cannot keep our, aspirations as high as possible. We cannot ex- ex- Not that we cannot, exactly the opposite, that we have to embody our faith in a very passionate way. And this is due to Jupiter preparing to leave the sign of Aries. So it means that it's touching on those energetic degrees on the sign of Aries, where the eclipse was as well. It is just leaving its conjunction with Eris, and this played out in a world stage in rather, obvious ways. Protests, uprising, shocking, emotional twists and turns, and people fighting for their sovereignty, because ultimately that is the best expression of this energy. Jupiter, the law, divine law, sovereignty, Aries, I am, the self. Aries is the symbolism of the first house. So it's very, very much about the self and what the self does. And even philosophically, even, esoterically, the Aries self in that sense is kind of important because it is the alpha and the omega in the sense that that's the whole point. You have to kind of overcome that and refine it through an incarnation, or we can also say many incarnations, almost that it doesn't even resemble itself how it started the first breath. That's how hard it changes. It is altered through the course of life, yes, but it is the most important how we do that. What becomes of the self? The self that lives this, that does this. The self is basically also the divine spice and pepper, sugar, spice, and everything nice. That's in a way the whole point of it, even though that is what will ultimately defeat or alchemize into, as I said, the scorpionic expression, that it won't even resemble itself. The alchemist journey. How we started the journey, of course, it doesn't resemble how we get, I don't want to say to the end of the journey because it's infinite in that sense, but how we get to important wrap up points, if that even makes sense. Even in the tarot, the Fool, of course, it doesn't resemble the World card. They're very, almost in a sense, dichotomous in nature. Fool being Uranus and the World being Saturn. The two co-rulers of the sign of Aquarius, exactly dichotomous in nature. It's even written, in the philosophy of humankind, tarot being a symbol of that, how humankind perceives the journey through life, existence, and everything that has to do with it. The tarot is a really, really good, and this is where it's not even all that esoterical, but rather philosophical. It does embody humanity's vision of this idea, of this perception of the journey through life, evolution as a soul, and everything that has to do with it. And this is why Jupiter touching these very important degrees in Aries is very, very intense. Because it's the faith, it's the subjectivity of the self. But that subjectivity is the whole point. Why Aries is the gateway into the real world, so to speak. Where it's the first breath, it is the beginning. So that beginning has to be very, very symbolic because in real life, a very concrete example, at birth, well, we're kind of given a name, an identity, and even a karmic familiar setup with family dynamics and all that. And needless to say, a birth chart is a very Aquarian and Uranian way of looking at that. While the tarot can be a very Piscean way of looking at that, but a very Saturnian way of looking at that is we're born and we're given a name and identity, and that in itself determines a lot of things which don't depend on us. We can overcome them, we can alchemize them, but the starting conditions will be still the starting conditions. Because as a baby, there's not all that much we can do, if you know what I mean. And yes, Aries is the baby stages of everything. So Jupiter in that part of the sky is very, very important in my vision because even the legend of Jupiter, when Jupiter was a baby, his fate, his triumph, his succession, as in him succeeding, was predetermined. It was a prophecy. It had to be so. So Jupiter had, for, obvious reasons, a lot of self-confidence in a prophetic way. So, that means, just like the sign of Aries, certain risks weren't all that much of a risk for him personally, because the only risk was in which way did it manifest, but he was kind of safe because he was the prime subject of a great cosmic, let's say, prophecy. And we are going to be feeling this in certain areas of our lives this week because, as I said, a prophecy is writing itself. The energies of the eclipse are manifesting. What is being born in our lives? Where are, situations, facts, connections, people, communication, Mercury retrograde, whatever surfaces, whoever surfaces from the past, what patterns are playing out? How does that speak to us? Where is it leading us? We, at this point, already know what it is that we either need to do or that do maybe wait, endure, reach this point, reach this date, etc., etc. But these things are coming to us, hence the sextiles, because the sextiles are celestial conversations of blessing, but that blessing is truly in our hands because they require energy input. Sometimes it's the opposite, where we withdraw in certain cases, but that's also an intent, that's also consciously using something, wisdom or knowledge, know-how, life experience of self, of others, parents, etc. But we are doing something. So this week is gonna be a week full of sextiles. But before I get to the sextiles, we have a really important energy shift at the very, very beginning of the week where Venus leaves the sign of Gemini and it enters 0 degree Cancer. And this is significant because Venus likes being in this part of the sky. Venus in the sign of Cancer is a symbol of inspiration, the three graces, when blessed water is being poured down on us. So, this is a really, really good energy for artists, for anything that has to do with love, romance, even love as a family, as union, the sign of Cancer, of course. Everything that has to do with cultural energy. Venus in the sign of Cancer, a value is what the culture holds as value, not necessarily, what Capricorn determines as value, in that sense that experts, etc., say that this is the value and this is how it has to be. This is where the people, the feeling, the collective feeling determines what value is, the preference, and feelings crystallize. So this is truly a really good aspect for love, for inspiration, for creativity, for the spirit, of course. But then again, the other intense energies in the sky might disrupt the, romantic vibe. Why am I saying this? Well, first of all, because on the 9th we have a conjunction, a meeting between the Sun and Uranus. And this is important because Uranus comes with the awareness, with the shock factor. The Sun, our consciousness, our awareness, our ego, our identity. And the Sun combusts. So, this energy for some people, of course, it can be lucky. It can be a risk paying off. It can be a lucky breakthrough, a lucky hint, an epiphany, a good idea, an unexpected turnaround of events which leads surprisingly in a right constructive direction. But this can also just build itself further on the eclipse energy because the eclipse was opposing Uranus. The moon was opposing Uranus. Not precisely, but it was opposing it. That means this can further reveal something. It can further add clarity. And the surprise is processed in that sense. But sometimes the surprise factor comes from within, We are the surprise elements in other people's or situations, groups, businesses equation. Now, this energy is not all that easy because collectively, especially, we have Pluto squaring the nodes of the moon, especially the North Node in Taurus. And this square between Pluto and the nodes is only. Now, please excuse my bad choice of words, it's only gonna get worse. In that it's not gonna get better straight away, it's gonna intensify in the days and weeks to come because it is one of the components of a fixed grand cross, one of the heaviest, one of the um yes, the evolutionary aspect of the fixed grand cross. Oh, it's level up, you changed, you transformed, this is the way forward, you broke through the barrier, the concrete wall is smashed down. Yes, as a symbolism, not that it has historical or astrological facts with it, but the symbolism, the smashing of the Berlin Wall. That is how a fixed grand cross with Pluto involved in it, nodes involved in it, Mars involved in it, can truly feel like. Because it's really something that needs to be broken down, to be broken through, if you know what I mean. And on one hand, the Taurus Scorpio financial axis is there. So we will know that collectively it is a turbulent, um, and with Uranus in Taurus, shocking, unstable, fluctuating financial energy. You know, this is where we can say that other aspects resemble 2008-9, that financial crisis, other aspects, the Great Depression, etc., etc. But right now, Uranus holds surprises, and its intent is to upgrade our value system collectively. So it has to have constructive, creational sides to it. But Pluto is demolishing. Pluto is violently, psychologically, or through our collective psyche, erasing certain Aquarius artificial values which cannot grow because they are too inorganic. They are just illusions. So this is like a wrecking ball. Banks change because dynamics change. The stock markets fluctuate. Crypto is arising, but it's so unstable that no, it doesn't have the guarantee. No one can anticipate financially anymore. This is where, if you know the two of um swords tarot card, or the eight of swords, better said, eight of swords, let's make it eight of swords. The female figure has, blindfold on, and in the eight of swords she's even wrapped up, bound like Andromeda. This is how the world is financially right now, totally blind, in a way totally powerless. Our wisdom, our Uranian skills, anticipation is only so much that they can help us. When it's so unstable, it's so unstable. So, of course, this means that surprising collapses, surprising instability, but on the other hand, whatever arises as new, that's equally shocking, that's surprising in its simplicity, Taurus, and its efficiency, that's more Uranus and the node. Because Pluto squaring the node, that which is truly efficient, that which truly embodies Aquarius, is allowed to stay because it passed the trial. The trial is everything that is way outdated or sometimes way Uranian, way too futuristic. Well, it cannot survive at this moment. Saturn in the sign of Pisces, this is where boundaries are not set in stone. You know, if Saturn is the divine blueprint, well, right now it's more like a Picasso painting. The shapes are not clear, they're not measurable, they're not rectangular, they're just washing away, wash together, if that makes sense. Now I know that Picasso also had rectangular stuff, but that's also Saturn in Pisces. How can you measure that level of complexity, because it just flows together into one, Pisces. So this is where we don't have the classic Saturn. We cannot rely on, for example, solid concrete experience of the past. And I had this feedback from so very many people saying, Attila, what do I do? I don't have any coping skills with what I'm facing right now, because not only me, but my mother, my grandmother, my father, my everyone I know no one ever lived this. So what do we do? How do we know? You are the pioneers. We are the pioneers. That's the answer I give. How you cope, how you manage, how you use your Uranus and Aquarius, that's that's how it's gonna be. You determine it. You are the first one, This is where the first people on the moon, the first, that footprint, that very famous footprint. Well, we are doing that right now in our lives individually, where exactly we don't know what to do because no one ever done this before, no one ever lived this before, astrologically, esoterically, historically, psychologically, technologically. Humanity in any of its stages, even Atlantis, if you want to include that, didn't have this level of technology and in this expression. This is very dense technology. Technology is usually not allowed to exist in this density. How it is allowed to exist, that surprises, all of us. We cannot fathom why the divine is allowing certain things. Anyway, it is an important topic. Don't get me wrong with Pluto in Aquarius. This will be spoken of and, discussed, but maybe not right now. But Pluto in Aquarius exactly squaring the nodes and preparing to hold the fixed Grand Cross, break down. Certain things are going to be breaking down in our lives, in our souls, in our hearts, in our minds. But it's really not what we're leaving behind that should worry us or get our attention, but what we are heading towards. Emotionally, spiritually, in any way, shape, and form, we need to look at the future and not really at the past, or not even that part of the present, which, is collapsing down. And, there is that example in the Christian Bible where the city was meteor showered or something like that, and the figure, the woman, was said, "Don't look back, because otherwise you'll turn into a block of salt," if I'm not mistaken. And that's in a way symbolic, because that is what happens when you see the doom and gloom and that's your only viable perception. You freeze. The soul, mind, the entirety of the being just panics. It has a soul panic attack. That is the symbolism. And the salt, you ground, but in a violent way. You just freeze. What can you do observing the undoing? It is what it is. But would you just look forward, the transition can be truly smooth, because that Pluto also means power, retrograde inner power. If we fuel the future in a diligent, as I said, squaring the North Node, illusions, fake values, that which is a parasite in your life, for example, social media, if that is parasitic to you, it's taking away something sacred from you, it will, chances are, disappear from your life. And if you have any plans with that, those plans will be demolished by Pluto. If, of course, this is other people the opposite. You dislike social media, But if that's where your power lies, Pluto will rub it into your life, and you have to leave behind your resistance to it. That I don't want it, I don't believe in it. What, you know what I mean? So whatever it's doing for us personally, but this Taurus means that we do have to leave something behind. A misaligned belief, if not anything else, an old idea, old way of living, old way of looking at things, old way of loving, an old identity, an old role, something we do need to leave behind. Black Moon Lilith, persisting in the sign of Leo, makes this be felt all that much more intensely. This just nuances the fixity of this energy. And then, later on, when Mars enters into the sign of Leo at 0 degrees, well, it will oppose Pluto. And then the squares are going to be connected together. And, the Grand Cross, fixed Grand Cross is there. Usually it changes such an energy, individually and collectively alike, changes everything, changes it for the better, of course. Especially that Mars is very powerful in the sign of Leo, and Mars is also who breaks up the cross very quickly. So Mars means action, Mars means power lies in the heart, in courage, in knowing things with the heart. There's knowing things with the mind. Pluto in Aquarius is a very good example of this. But there is also knowing things with the heart. And there are certain things a human being can only and only learn by heart. This is where you cannot substitute. And I'm giving just a random example. Let's say Leo child, where a boy learns X from his father by spending time with his father. For example, going hunting, foraging, bike, or doing it in a Leo way, heart to heart. And there is when you have a YouTube video telling you, do this, 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 this. One and the other, even if they might give the same results, are like two worlds apart, totally different types of learning. And we can not deny the fact that the Leo way, the sun ruling at Leo, and in the ancient astrology, it was the sun who was seen as the father figure. In Jungian astrology, it's more Saturn. But anyway, the learning through heart is so very important. And why is this highlighted here? Because how we go through this Grand Cross, personally, collectively, is what we're going to teach the next generation through heart. Because it is very, very important. And this is also creational energy. Solution lies in creativity, because every planet of this Grand Cross also says where the solution lies. Mars in the sign of Leo, well, of course, in our creative center, how much we're willing to sacrifice for our creative impulses, urges, fighting for our future, for our children. Then there is Pluto in Aquarius. The only way this is possible is if technology, if empirical knowledge science has a much greater moral, would I dare to say spiritual compass than it has today. Because technology has to align with the heart, with the feeling. But then there is, the nodes of the moon. There is North Node in the sign of Taurus, and by this time Jupiter will be at 0 degrees of Taurus. That is also very, very important, because Jupiter, the planet of expansion, Jupiter is the planet of truth, of justice, the great benefic. Truth is finally there. Justice has arrived in matter, Taurus. So this is where nature, everything natural, the basic simple values, the basic human, anything goes here, insert any other word, is gonna peak in value, as I said. We're gonna embody that collectively. That's where one of the that is the best for the that is the pace, sorry, forward. That is the path forward. North Node Collective Future, where we have to very, very strongly, emphasize on everything that is immortal, and exactly this immortal, literally immortal human values. That those human values which will never ever, not now, not in a million years, are gonna change. Those which are the divine essence of the human spirit, nature spirit, Taurus. Because Taurus, of course, the lowest expression is the lower ego, the inner animal, which is extremely selfish, and the highest expression is the self, which is in harmony with nature. And that self is the self that is arising right now. So we are going to be feeling this within nature herself. Nature, one way or another, through the behavior of animals, through weather, Uranus, through earth events, through something, wind, Uranus again, will reflect this. Will reflect that something powerful is taking place within herself. But everything that is natural and, you know, be this even within technology. For example, everything that truly is technological and truly serves the human spirit and is friendly to, has a strong moral compass, well, that becomes immortal. That is almost will be include something not natural will become natural. Like when someone has a very severe broken bone somewhere, and then there's those, metal things that you insert to keep them, but usually those stay for life. And ultimately the body accepts it, and that metal part is part of the person. It almost becomes a living part of that person, energetically and in so very many ways. Hence, something not very natural can be accepted by nature. And we see this clearly in oceans, and where animals make good use of clothing or some excrement of us, like a piece of plastic, piece of metal, to make homes. To there is the bad part of pollution, but there is also where animals can use them, like they create masterpieces with them. Anyway, I don't want to get into this, but there's also that side of the energy. And it is very, very important that we observe all this taking place. Because, as I said, we have to pass this down as lived experience, as memory, as whatever to and future generations. And finally, there's the Scorpio, the scorpionic part of this energy, where we have the North Node and dwarf planet Haumea. So, exactly. What we release, Scorpio, we release for good. And this is also the element of the phoenix. Certain things which might have been eclipsed, or how should I say, suffocated, like a, that Chinese plant which kind of, if it grows on your property, well, chances are it becomes valueless because it's such a bad plant. You kind of guessed what I'm want to say with this. It's like that. It just it if it's there, it's really, really bad. So this is how the energy can work. So we have to eliminate and make sure that those weeds, whatever, those bad things which make all efforts valueless in a millisecond are gone forever. So we are terminating, we are ending, we are purging out collectively such strong, I'm not even sure what's bindweed or something that has troubled us for a very, very long time as a species, because this is also collective. And Scorpio value change, what money does, and money, at least in a scorpionic way, what feelings, water sign, we attribute to it. Well, greed, vanity, and power, but not in the best sense, rather in the violent sense. Those come to mind for almost even people who absolutely love money, even they accept that side of it. So maybe this is what that Scorpio self node is also purging out. But anyway, this is the problem. Let's see the solutions, because I'm already well into the horoscope and I haven't even said the good side of this energy. Because to understand the fixed cross that is just forming as we speak is also very important, because there are going to be things that we need to let go because they are going in our lives. May they be just energy feeling, or really like business or job change, career change, living situation change, relationship change. Change is change. But then we have Venus trining Saturn, that's going to be exact on the 13th. This is really, really beautiful because, as I said, Saturn, time, the structures, the rigidity of things, of life, of everything is pretty mutable. It is a bit washed away. It is, not its immovable self. And Venus, especially in the sign of Cancer, that is, pure emotion, pure delight, pure joy. So these two energies speaking together in harmony, this is where either power comes from feeling, from emotion, from love, from solidarity, from the divine, from a dream, Pisces, from the mystical side of life, but it can also be from family, from people who love you and you love deeply. This is where things, people, energies, emotions are coming together to form a bond, a very, very strong emotional bond that will be visible externally as well. Because when love comes together, things happen, good things happen. And sometimes, they don't always come knocking at the door, but if you take a step outside, actually, this is a trine. Sometimes they actually come knocking at the door. If it would be a sextile, and we do have a lot of sextiles, and I'm gonna be speaking about this just in a second, but this Venus and Saturn trine can be a truly blessed energy. Blessing is felt, blessing is timeless, blessing sometimes even defies logic, Saturn in the sign of Pisces, and it comes to help, it comes to delight, a divine inspiration, a source of joy, a gift, a present from someone deeply loved. Something gives you strength to go on. And another beautiful energy, Mars holding a trine with Neptune. So Pisces in the positive way for a change is highlighted because both of these planets, Saturn and Neptune, are in the sign of Pisces. And Mars was the planet who conversed, in tension with Neptune not so long ago when it was in at the end degrees of the sign of Gemini and through its retrograde. So we had a lot of disillusioning. We had a lot of gestures, actions, words, thoughts even going two ways. Both good and bad, both positive and negative, both mistake but wise. But now we get the good side for every wise choice, Saturn, for every diligence, for every gesture of kindness, for every situation when we were true within our hearts, moral, righteous, etc., we get a blessing. This is the energy of blessing. Our actions are empowered. What we do in the name of compassion, compassion even towards the self. When you have a need in your life, well, compassion towards the self is all but logical. It is very, very logical, because otherwise, you're not serving your Saturn. Responsibility towards the self for your own integrity. So very many times when we have an urgent need in our lives, we need the right choice in any way, shape, and form, even spirit, even within the Christ consciousness, is to direct it towards the self and try and fix it. And every effort in this sense is blessed with this trine, because Mars, it is debilitated in Cancer, but it for a healer, for every, we are our own healers many times. When we go to the specialist, doctor, etc., well, in the very first stage, we were the healer who went. We were the healer who took action. So service towards the self in that sense can go a very, very long way. Compassion, understanding, kindness towards the self. This is where Mars in Cancer. Cancer is the best example of self nurture, of self care, self conservation, but in a constructive, nurturing way, mothering way, if you will, regeneration, but in an easy way, not necessarily the strong scorpionic way. But of course, every water sign has a scorpionic deacon in it. Anyway, so this energy is accepted into manifestation much, much, much stronger than usually, because Saturn and Mars, these two planets, Neptune, not Neptune and Mars. And Neptune is the divine source. So you can imagine that every action, every gesture of self-empowerment, every good intent, Mars can represent prayer. Mars can represent, as I said, deep understanding towards the self psychoanalysis. Be your own therapist, be your own spiritualist, be your own guide, be your own counselor. All of this works like a charm right now. It's almost like something benevolent, Neptune, inspires us. Needless to say, to do this for another person works just as well. So healers, in any way, shape, and form, including, classic healers like doctors, nurses, but alternative healers, psychologists, everything of this nature is blessed, empowered, and there is a strong opportunity to do some good, because healing magic and healing work is going to be truly strong and empowering other people through everything that we can do. And let's talk about, last but not least, the sextiles. So Mercury retrograde will hold a sextile with Saturn and then with Venus. Saturn, of course, in Pisces, Venus in Cancer. And I do believe this is one of the best energies of this Mercury retrograde season, because Mercury can represent the plans, the understanding, everything that we're redoing, rethinking. We already got our tasks, our to-do list, or the big idea of what this Mercury retrograde means in our life, what it is that we need to take care of. We're doing it. So our efforts, Saturn, every diligent measure, every moment when we are patient, every moment when we, Pisces, we don't stress, when we go with the flow in trust and confidence that we're getting there. And when we're basically adaptable, we are rewarded because good things happen because we did the right thing, we had the right attitude, and that's also frequency. We operate smoothly. Mercury retrograde in this sense becomes our greatest ally because people want to help communication goes the right way for a change. Why? Because communication is kept simple and utility wise, it has to do this and that. So you keep it simple, you keep it clear. Of course, it does a good job. And of course, whatever has broken down under this Mercury retrograde, now it gets fixed, and perhaps the fixed part is much better than it was before, Saturn. And then Venus, you see the value in it, you see the feeling in it, it delights you, it gives you peace of mind, it gives you comfort. Why not? Venus in the sign of Cancer. It makes you feel good that things are being taken care of. Your efforts are working. You find solutions. The mind is, for example, not alone. Venus in Cancer. If you don't know something or you're not very good at something, there is a friend, there is someone in the world, Cancer, especially near you, who is good at that thing, and you share, so you feel that you're not alone even with things that you might have a weakness with. There's someone in your life who is more than capable and willing, and with a loving waviness fills that role. It helps you. You see the synergies in your life with other people, you see the alliances, you see the connections, you see the intelligence of the divine where it wove your social circle ultimately. And in the sign of Cancer, it's not just the Aquarian social, it's really people who matter in your life a lot, that you're a perfect group together. Everyone completes the other in a symbiotic way, let's say. And finally, there is uh, the sun sextiling Mars. And this is an energy which, as I said, at the beginning of the week, we find certain things out, or we come up with ideas, epiphanies, solutions, communication. Sun conjunct Uranus, the surprise factor. With this sextile, this is where we're already using that. We see that getting somewhere. We see the utility of that. So this is quite an empowering energy. Now, there is a lot we can do with it. Solutions to work hard, or whatever it is that whatever action or inaction we are required to do in our lives right now. But we cannot also ignore that the heaviness is approaching. So it's not going to be easy in the coming weeks. Even if things are working like a charm, the work itself is hard, it's soliciting. That's one of the most, how should I say, elevated examples where it's actually everything's positive, but still the time, the effort, and the sacrifices to build something, to save something, to do something, that's not easy. You will lose energy, if not psychologically, but then physically. You will be so tired that, but chances are, for everyone, in one way or another, this does represent at least a small moment when we are before a change and it's uncomfortable. It is, in a way, uncomfortable. So I cannot say that it's gonna be easy. It's not gonna be easy, but it can be beautiful, and it can be epic, it can be memorable, it can be heroic, it can even be legendary, because no one has ever done this, lived this, felt this, manifested this before us. We are the first. So No, the hardship of it goes hand in hand. Would we want it easy? No, we can't. So how we cope, how we get through, what awaits us at the other side of the tunnel, so to speak, is so very worth it. So let this motivate us and animate us. So I do hope that this was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for all the love and support. I still haven't sorted out my internet, so sorry about this. And until next time, bye for now.